The year is 1861, April. The air is thick with tension, and the nation stands on the brink of a monumental conflict. The United States, a nation forged in the fires of revolution, finds itself on the precipice of an even greater inferno. Brother stands against brother, families torn apart by differing loyalties. The issue, the enslavement of millions. A moral and economic divide that has festered for decades, now erupting into open conflict. A nation born of liberty wrestles with its own hypocrisy. The American Civil War, a struggle not just for territory but for the very soul of the nation. A brutal, bloody conflict that tore the nation asunder. Fields once green turned red with the blood of countless soldiers. In the end, the Union prevailed, securing the emancipation of those held in bondage. A hard-fought victory that reshaped the nation. But what if the tides of war had turned? What if the battles had ended differently? What if the Confederacy, those states clinging desperately to the institution of slavery, had triumphed, a victory for a cause rooted in oppression? What would our world, our nation, look like today? A haunting question that lingers in the corridors of history. This is not a tale of glory, but a descent into a darkness that could have been. A chilling reminder of the fragile nature of our progress and the battles still to be fought. History hinges on moments, on decisions made and battles fought. Imagine, if you will, a different outcome at Gettysburg. Picture General Lee's army, emboldened by victory, marching on Washington. The fall of the Union capital, the capture of President Lincoln himself. Such a blow, both strategic and symbolic, could have crippled the North's resolve. Foreign powers, eager to see the Union fall, throw their support behind the Confederacy. France and Great Britain, their textile industries reliant on Southern cotton, recognize the Confederacy as a legitimate nation. This recognition brings financial aid, military supplies, and perhaps even direct intervention. The Confederacy, bolstered by foreign support and emboldened by victory, dictates the terms of peace. The United States, fractured and defeated, is forced to acknowledge the Confederacy's independence. The Confederacy, born of rebellion, now stands triumphant. But victory comes at a cost. The land is scarred by conflict, the economy in ruins, yet there is a palpable sense of relief, of elation, among the Confederacy's white population. They have preserved their way of life, their peculiar institution. But this victory casts a long shadow. Millions remain enslaved, their hopes for freedom dashed against the rocks of Confederate triumph. The institution of slavery, meant to be a dying ember, is rekindled into a roaring fire. The Confederate government, eager to solidify its position and expand its territory, looks westward. New territories are annexed, their fate intertwined with the Confederacy's. The institution of slavery, a stain on the nation's soul, spreads like a virus. The most horrifying consequence of a Confederate victory is the continuation of slavery. Millions remain trapped in its brutal grip. They toil in the fields, their labor fueling the Confederacy's economy. They are denied basic human rights, treated as chattel, as property, not people. Families are torn apart, sold to different masters, their pleas for mercy ignored. The whip and the lash become instruments of discipline, of control. The slave codes, already inhumane, are strengthened. Any hope of rebellion is ruthlessly crushed. The Confederacy, founded on the principle of white supremacy, becomes a pariah on the world stage, its very existence a testament to man's inhumanity to man. Yet it stands a bastion of oppression, a stark counterpoint to the ideals of liberty and equality. Section 5. Echoes of Anguish. The cries of the enslaved echo across the land, a constant reminder of the Confederacy's dark heart. Their suffering is woven into the very fabric of society. Abolitionists, their voices silenced, watch in horror as their worst fears are realized. The North, defeated but not broken, becomes a haven for runaway slaves. The Underground Railroad, once a lifeline, transforms into a perilous escape route from the Confederacy. The world watches in stunned silence as the United States, a beacon of hope, succumbs to its demons. The dream of a nation founded on liberty and equality lies shattered, a casualty of war and the enduring legacy of slavery. Section 6. The North divided. The northern states, reeling from their defeat, grapple with the reality of a Confederate victory. Some advocate for reconciliation, for finding a way to coexist with their former countrymen. Others, haunted by the horrors of slavery, vow to continue the fight for abolition. The abolitionist movement, once a powerful force in Northern society, is driven underground. Its leaders, branded as radicals and traitors, are persecuted, imprisoned, or worse. The North, once a bastion of industry and progress, finds itself lagging behind the Confederacy in terms of economic and technological advancement. The Confederate government, eager to maintain its dominance, imposes harsh tariffs and trade restrictions on the North. Section 7. A World Asunder. The world watches with a mix of trepidation and opportunity as the United States, once a rising power on the global stage, is fractured. European powers, sensing weakness, assert themselves in the Americas. The Confederacy, desperate for recognition and allies, forms alliances with nations that share its disdain for human rights and equality. The world, once hopeful for a future where slavery was relegated to the dustbin of history, now faces the grim reality of its resurgence. The Confederacy's existence serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of freedom and the ever-present threat of tyranny. Section 8. The Specter of Emancipation. Despite the Confederacy's triumph, the idea of emancipation refuses to die. Abolitionists, both within the Confederacy and abroad, continue to agitate for the end of slavery. Their efforts, though met with brutal repression, serve as a beacon of hope for the enslaved. Underground networks emerge within the Confederacy, smuggling slaves to freedom in the North or abroad. These networks, though fraught with danger, offer a glimmer of hope in an otherwise bleak landscape. The Confederacy, haunted by the specter of slave revolts and facing increasing international pressure, finds itself on the defensive. The institution of slavery, once the cornerstone of its existence, becomes a liability, a source of instability and fear. Section 9. Internal divisions. The Confederacy, though victorious, is far from united. Internal divisions present from its inception begin to surface with renewed vigor. States' rights, a rallying cry during the war, become a point of contention as the Confederate government attempts to assert its authority. The issue of slavery, though officially sanctioned, continues to divide the Confederacy. Some argue for its expansion, while others, recognizing its inherent immorality and the threat it poses to the Confederacy's stability, advocate for its gradual abolition. Economic disparities between the wealthy planter class and the poor white population fuel resentment and unrest. The Confederacy, built on the backs of slaves, struggles to address the needs of its citizens. Section 10. The Weight of Legacy. The Confederacy, forever marked by its embrace of slavery, becomes an international pariah. Its very foundation, built on the backs of enslaved people, casts a long, dark shadow over its legacy. Foreign investment dries up, and trade relations are strained. Nations around the world, unwilling to associate with a country that upholds such inhumane practices, turn their backs on the Confederacy. The Confederacy, isolated and ostracized, struggles to find its place in the world. Its leaders, once confident in their cause, now face the harsh reality of international condemnation and economic hardship. The South's once grand cities, scarred by war and burdened by the weight of history, become symbols of a bygone era. These cities, once bustling with commerce and culture, now stand as silent witnesses to the devastation and moral cost of their past. The Confederacy, its economy reliant on agriculture and shackled to the institution of slavery, finds itself falling behind the rest of the world in terms of industrial and technological progress. The agricultural sector, once the backbone of the Southern economy, now struggles to compete in a rapidly modernizing world. The Confederate people, their dreams of independence tarnished by the realities of their nation's founding, grapple with the moral implications of their victory. They are forced to confront the brutal truth of their history and the suffering it has caused. The Confederacy, conceived in sin, struggles to reconcile its past with its present. The weight of its legacy bears heavily on the nation as it seeks a path forward amidst the shadows of its history. Section 11. A world held hostage. The world watches with a sense of dread as the Confederacy, armed with the knowledge of advanced weaponry and fueled by its need for expansion, becomes increasingly militaristic. The specter of war hangs heavy over the globe. The delicate balance of power, maintained for decades, is shattered as the Confederacy disrupts trade routes, ignites regional conflicts, and threatens the sovereignty of its neighbors. The Confederacy, driven by its need to preserve its way of life and fueled by the paranoia of its leaders, becomes a rogue state, a threat to global stability. The world, once hopeful for a future of peace and cooperation, finds itself held hostage to the Confederacy's ambitions. Section 12. The Unfolding Century. As the 19th century gives way to the 20th, the world stands on the brink of monumental change. The dawn of the new century brings with it the rise of groundbreaking ideologies, revolutionary technologies, and unprecedented global conflicts. The Confederacy, clinging desperately to its outdated beliefs and practices, struggles to find its place in this rapidly evolving landscape. As the world moves forward, the Confederacy finds itself increasingly at odds with the modern world, unable to keep pace with the rapid advancements. The horrors of the First World War, a conflict on a scale never before imagined, bring devastation and despair to millions. These images serve as a stark reminder of the human cost of unchecked ambition and hatred, a lesson painfully learned by all involved. The Confederacy, though officially neutral, finds itself entangled in the global conflict. Its resources are exploited by both sides, drawing it deeper into the fray despite its attempts to remain on the sidelines. The Confederacy, its economy in ruins and its people disillusioned, emerges from the war a shadow of its former self, struggling to rebuild and recover. The once proud nation now faces the daunting task of reconstruction and healing. The world, horrified by the carnage and determined to prevent future conflicts, comes together in an effort to forge a new path. This new path is based on diplomacy and cooperation, a collective hope to build a more peaceful and stable future for all nations. Section 13. A Legacy of Sorrow. In this alternate timeline, the Confederacy's victory casts a long and chilling shadow over the course of history. The institution of slavery, meant to be relegated to the annals of history, continues to poison the soul of a nation. Instead of a united United States, a beacon of hope and freedom, the world watches as two deeply divided nations, forever bound by their shared history and haunted by the specter of slavery, struggle to coexist. The Confederacy's existence serves as a constant reminder of the fragility of freedom and the ever-present threat of tyranny. It stands as a stark warning to future generations of the dangers of division, hatred, and the enduring legacy of our nation's original sin.